Hello and welcome to the Rogue Monkey podcast. My name is Kevin Pickard. We've reached our 30th episode and we've got a very special story to share with you today. But before we get into that, if you're not already subscribed to the show, please make sure you hit subscribe on whatever platform you're joining us from today. And after the episode, if you can give us a quick review, that would be greatly appreciated. The release of today's episode coincides with Rare Disease Day, an awareness event aiming to support the 300 million people around the world affected and generate conversation around a subject that too often doesn't get enough exposure. Head over to rarediseaseday.org to find out more. Our guest today and the story he shares brings to life the journey of someone affected by a life-threatening illness, and we hope his story will inspire others who face similar challenges. Today's emotional rollercoaster of an interview isn't one that I'm traversing alone, and I'm pleased to be joined by co-host Danny Buckley. Danny featured in our YouTube 2020 review episode and brings a wealth of knowledge and interview experience with him. I'm not going to say any more as today's episode is full of twists and turns along the way, so we're going to get straight into today's discussion and our 30th episode of the Rogue Monkey podcast. The Cancer Journey, bringing to life the story of Ashton Marshall. Hello gents, welcome to the podcast. How are you both?
Good, yeah, good, thank
you. Good, yeah.
Awesome.
Well, good too. That's a good start.
Yeah, it's always a good start. We've got Danny, guest host, joining us today, and we're going to be exploring a very fascinating and emotional journey that you've been on over the last few years. Ash, so if you can just give us a little bit of an intro as to who you are and kind of, you know, what your headline journey's been like.
Yeah, so my name is Ashton Marshall. I'm 25 and I was diagnosed with stage 2 testicular cancer on Christmas Eve 2019. I guess the reason I'm here is obviously because I've gone through such a horrific journey, which could have been very easy to solve at very early doors. But obviously being such an alpha male, I think, which is such a big subject in the days we're living at the moment, I tried my best to find a positive in the negative that I was living, and I suppose I've done pretty well. So yeah, it's delighted to be reached out from Danny and Kevin today to come on here, really.
Yeah, well, we're going to explore kind of this timeline because it's something that unless you've experienced it or had close family experience it, I don't think anyone can actually imagine it and gain the insights that hopefully you're going to share with us today. But I mean, take us back to kind of the start back, I think it was 2019. You know, what happened? How did this all kind of first flag up before the alpha male kicked in?
Yeah, so I was a bit of a Herbert, if you should put it like that, really. A bit of a geezer, I guess, going down the pub most weekends at 24. I was 23 then, and it was the summer of 2019. I was going to a lot of festivals with my friends, going to football as much as I can, and I was actually on a lads holiday at a music festival called Hideout in Croatia, and I found a lump in my testicle. I don't know what it was. I knew that, you know, us men should check your testicles for lumps and bumps. My brother did actually have testicular cancer when he was 24, so I knew what it was about. I knew what to look for, and I found the lump on the holiday, and I chose to ignore it because I thought nothing. It wasn't going to be anything bad. Nothing bad can happen to me. I'm Ashton Marshall, so I left it. And over the next 6 months, it did get progressively worse. It got a little bit bigger. It got more sore and tender. I couldn't wear skinny jeans in the end. I got hit in the testicles by a football playing five-a-side, and like that pain I will never forget. Like, there is pain from, you know, us lads will know of being hit in the testicles by a ball, but I will never forget that pain. It was literally excruciating. And then I thought I better grow up at some point, and I then basically got into a relationship with my now fiance Charlotte, who I worked with on and off with for the last 5 years, and she kind of wound me in, really. And you know, I stopped going out so much, I stopped hanging around with the wrong people, and I just became really ill one day at work. And I thought it was just from overworking. I had been offered a promotion, so I was doing everything in my power to show that I was the man for the promotion, if you like to call it. And I rang her one evening and just said, look, Charlotte, I really don't feel well, but I feel like my body is shutting down. And she's noticed over the last couple of days that I've been a bit down. And she said, why don't you just call 111 and see what they say? And when I say that my body was shutting down, I was just feeling really hot, really cold. I was shaking. I had a really bad cough, but I just knew it wasn't that cowpole job. It was something that was going on a little bit more intense. And at this point, I was the only person that knew I still had this lump on my testicle, which I chose to ignore and which I knew had become a lot worse. So I started panicking. I was like, oh my God, I was literally sitting there at my desk thinking, I've got a really bad chest infection. I've got a lump on my testicle. What if I've got cancer and it's spread to my lungs? That was the kind of mindset I was in. It was really panicking, really. So I spoke to a gentleman on the 111 call and explained all my symptoms. And he said, okay, it looks like you've got a chest infection. I said, just before you go, I want to kind of ask you, I found a lump on my testicle and this is what's happened the last 6 months. And his tone of voice just changed dramatically. And he said, go to the hospital now, go get it checked, go get some medication for your chest infection. And, your GP will take it from there. So I rang Charlotte and said, look, I'm going to go to the hospital. That's what they've advised. But I still didn't tell her about this lump on the testicle because I was so embarrassed, really. I was new into the relationship. I didn't want to say that there was something potentially wrong with my testicle. It's such a private thing to say. So I got to the hospital and she came into the room with me, actually. She met me there. And I was really nervous because I thought I'm going to have to tell her at some point that the real reason I'm here is not just because of my chest infection, but because I've got a lump on my testicle. So before I mentioned it to the doctor, I just said, Charlotte, I'm really sorry. I should have been really honest with you, but this is something a little bit more deeper than what you think. And she kind of looked at me as if to say what? And then I just said to the doctor, I said, look, I spoke to 111 on the call and she knew, she had all the notes. And I just said, look, I found a lump on my testicle and it's becoming increasingly worrying. So she felt the lump and I'll never forget that look that she kind of gave to me as if to say wow, look, why have you left this so long? So she said, look, go for blood tests tomorrow, first thing, and go get an ultrasound scan on your testicle as well. And if it's anything really bad, they'll call you within the next 48 hours. So I went for the scan, and then the next morning, they literally called me at 8 o'clock saying, can you come to the doctor's immediately? And I said, I can be there within the next 5 minutes. I only live around the corner. And that was Christmas Eve. And that was it. That was when I was diagnosed with stage 2 testicular cancer.
Okay. Well, I'm going to dive in with the first one. Can you recall what that was like being told that? Because there's a difference, I guess, between the fear element and worrying about what it could be and what it might be and all that, and actually hearing a medical professional say, this is what it is. Yeah,
I mean, it's people always say that they have that out of body experience of all four walls caving in. That's exactly how I can describe it. Obviously I was just filled with emotion of why me? What have I done wrong? Have I been too much of an idiot the last year? Is this someone trying to tell me to calm down or to change my lifestyle? I don't really know, but I just remember turning around and saying to some of my dad and Charlotte who were in the room and just said, I can't have cancer. I'm Ashton Marshall. Why? I can't. This is not real.
Danny, I don't know if I'm just thinking, obviously, you've known Ashton a little while now, and, what are kind of your thoughts on hearing that from knowing him for a while?
Yeah, well, this is kind of why I wanted to set this sort of conversation up, is because obviously I've been in the fortunate position to follow your story, Ashton, and I know that sounds really ridiculous because obviously it's been an unfortunate experience for you, but for me, as someone that's a similar age to you, we went to the same school, we're obviously the same gender, we've done lots of the same things. It's been a fortunate experience for me to follow your story. and to know what's been happening with you and follow the impact that you've made on everybody else because of this tragic thing that's happened. One thing that I was really interested in speaking to you about, and I know this is something that I'm sure we'll come to at the end in terms of what's your message, but what made you first think something's not right there? So you mentioned that you was away with your friends in Croatia, and I think there will be people that will listen to this that, you know, check on a weekly basis, as I now do, because of what happened to you, and that's the honest truth. Every single Sunday I do check now. But what was it? What was it that made you go, oh, hang on a minute, there's something there? Or what did it feel like? What was it? What should people look out for?
Yes, it was just, it was like, I don't know if, I think, well, everyone has probably had a BB gun at some point in their life, but a BB pellet, they're so small. It's like almost like a peppercorn, really. That was how small it was on my testicle. I always checked in the shower because that's how my brother taught me, when he not actually taught me, but that's how he said to me to check properly in the shower, because you know your body gets a little bit warmer and your skin gets easier to touch, really. So I remember feeling it and just thinking, right, okay, well, what do I do now? Do I ring my brother? Do I ring the doctor? Or do I carry on having a good time at this festival? And I was just such an idiot geezer lad that I thought I was, and thought I'm going to enjoy this holiday. And when I got back, the lump never hurt until about November, December time, when I started to get this chest infection. So I do think that, you know, I did get this chest infection for a reason. It wasn't linked. That's what the doctor says this very day. But I do think that I was meant to get a chest infection, because I don't think I probably would have got it checked for maybe a couple more months, and who knows where it might have spread to. But I was just all about having a good time and thinking that nothing bad was going to happen to me. I was thinking maybe I've been drunk over the last couple of days and I've fallen over and knocked something or twisted something. It could be a cyst, because they come and go. But yeah, I was just all about having a good time and not letting anything negative affect me. And I knew that it would sound silly. I knew that was negative, but I chose to ignore it because I wanted to have a good time.
Right.
I mean, let's say we'll pick up on, I guess, some of the reflections, because I'm sure as we unpick what happened next, you know, I guess the gravity of the situation, if it wasn't already scary enough, you know, obviously that wasn't, thankfully, the end of the road. So, you know, happy Christmas, you've got cancer. What happened next?
So I was told on obviously Christmas Eve that was the day I was diagnosed. And my doctor said, look, the next stage is you need to have a few more blood tests. We need to see exactly, you know, what type of tumor it is. And you need to have an operation to have your testicle removed, immediately. So I'd never really, that was the first ever operation I'd actually had. And it was also moved to Bushey Hospital, so Watford Hospital, as that's where I could be seen a lot quicker. So I had the operation. The operation, looking back, it wasn't actually that bad. It was very similar to like having your appendix removed. My big worry was obviously I was going to be living the rest of my life with just one testicle. So that was quite a big worry, because I thought, right, I definitely do want to have children at some point in my life. Will that affect me? But they made it very, very clear that, you know, some people are actually born with one testicle and it doesn't affect them at all. So it won't affect me in the future. I'll still be able to have, you know, as many kids as I like, which is amazing. I thought, wow, I've really been lucky here. You know, I did leave it 6 months, but my doctor did say you've been very lucky because you left it so long. And if it was in June when you found it on this holiday, you know, a lot of other people, maybe older people, it would have spread a lot quicker to somewhere else. So I had the operation on the 2nd of January, 2020. So I didn't really have a New Year's Eve either. And obviously it was quite annoying, as it was our first one together as a couple with me and Charlotte. So, but all of that stuff really goes out the window, put it into context of, you know, the nightmare that we was living. So yeah, that was it really. And then the doctor said, over the next 10 years, you're going to be under surveillance with us. You'll have a scan once a year, a CT scan, full body scan, make sure that everything's all good. You'll have blood tests every 3 to 6 months for the next 10 years. And yeah, we'll go from there. So that was it. And I thought, wow, I've really found myself lucky here, and went back to living life and enjoying work again.
So just to put, I guess, some some dates on that, that's January 2020, 2 months before the rest of the world was going to start falling apart. So obviously, I would imagine you went into January, February, March, the start of 2020 with a relatively optimistic outlook, having dodged a pretty serious bullet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you do get a chance, scroll back to my Instagram. I've got some pretty cringy quotes at the beginning of 2020 saying, you know, I get knocked down, but I get up again. And 2020, here we come. It's our year. So I was placed on surveillance. We then went into lockdown in March as a country, which was quite hard. Obviously, everyone was living in the same nightmare then. And then I got a phone call on June the 12th from my doctor, and he said, your blood tests, I need you to have another one. I said, I've just had one last week. He said, no, that's the reason I'm calling you. The markers of the tumour has come back. I think it's called HFP levels, which is your protein cells, which only men and women do have it. It's basically, if a lady was to have a pregnancy test, when it comes back positive, it's those cells that if a man wheezing a pregnancy stick and it comes back pregnant, that actual HFP levels being too high. And it is a very bit of a myth about testicular cancer, but it is true. If you do wee on a pregnancy stick and you do have testicular cancer, it will show as positive. So those levels. So I knew I'd done all the research from when I'd obviously been diagnosed, but obviously been escaped the bullet, as you said. And he said, you need to have another test. I really need to double check something here. So I had another one, and my HFP levels went even higher. He then said, I need you to come in like tomorrow. So yeah, all the alarm bells started ringing again, really. I was like, okay, this is not right. So he looked at my CT scan that I had a couple of weeks ago. This bit's probably the hardest bit out of everything, really. He said it'd been found in my lymph nodes on the left side, and I'd have to start chemotherapy next week. So that was it, really. I'd had 6 months to research what chemotherapy was. I had 6 months of speaking to other people who hadn't been so lucky in getting it early and had left it so long that they had to start chemotherapy right away, or even radiotherapy. And I knew what was about to come for me, and that was harder than being diagnosed initially.
And going back to a very similar question to what Kevin asked earlier, was that a similar feeling that you got at that stage when you heard that news, or was there a little bit more? I don't know. Could you appreciate the seriousness a little bit more at that stage because you'd already been through that process and you'd done the research, as you said, and you understood it a little bit more detail?
Yeah, definitely. I think they always say, like, Google's your worst friend. Like, you don't Google anything, but I'm obviously going to Google what chemotherapy is. And I joined a page on Facebook called The Cancer Lads, and it's about these two twins that have been diagnosed with testicular cancer within a space of a week of each other. It's obviously a really unique story, but they've got a fantastic support group for all men that are diagnosed with any type of cancer, but they do specialize in testicular. And I'd messaged Ryan, who is one of the twins, and he said, look, mate, you're really lucky to have escaped the chemotherapy side of things. I had to have 3 rounds and have another serious operation called RPL&D. So, like, you're really lucky. But I'd messaged him and said, look, mate, I've got some really bad news, but I've been told that it's come back in my lymph nodes. And he said that's exactly what happened to me. But obviously, you've been lucky for the last 6 months. But with me, I didn't get any time to really sink in or anything. I just kind of started chemotherapy, but I've obviously had 6 months of searching the internet. But I knew this time round that I hadn't been lucky. I could hide it from people that I wanted to, because I'd only lost one testicle, and I could tell my friends and family. But now I know that I'm going to undergo chemotherapy. I'm going to lose my hair. I'm going to lose my muscle. I'm going to look completely different, and there is no hiding that from anyone. So I kind of chose to, puff my chest out and bring it on. Really, I had no other option, because if I didn't do that, then I don't think I would have coped. And I would have found it 10 times harder. So my only option really was to, tie my laces up and get dirty, really, and just get stuck in.
Yeah, I think Kevin's the same. We both had relatives that have been through that process. So I guess to hear it from you, who's sort of a young male going through chemo, what was that like? What is chemo in a very brief description, and what was it like to go through that?
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's horrendous. For me, like, I can cope with being ill because I'm a healthy young man as it is, and I know, like, if I get a cough, I'm usually over it in a couple of days. But with this, I knew I was going to be ill long term, and there was nothing I could do about it. The hardest thing was looking completely different. I'd always taken pride in what I looked like. I'd always had a 6-pack or whatever. I'd always had, like, toned arms. I've always looked after my body. And I've always had, like, nice hairstyles, but I knew now that I was about to lose all of that, and I was going to look completely different. And it does go through your mind, like, will Charlotte still fancy me, and will my friends still want to be friends with me? And I know my mum and dad are going to be there because they have to be there. They have no other option. But you do start overthinking things. But it was awful. I chose to shave my hair off for charity a week before I started treatment, just so that I didn't have that feeling of pulling out my own hair or it falling out in the shower. But I cut it back too early. But it did end up falling out whilst I was in hospital. And I'll never forget that. I was just in the shower, and I just put my hand through my head to wash my hair, and it was just so heartbreaking. It was literally like I was in a film. It was really, really strange feeling. And that was for 10 weeks. So for the 10 weeks, every week that went by, it just got harder and harder. But my HSP blood markers to show that the cancer was going, it was coming down quite a lot. So my doctor was really happy with that. So there was no time of, like, slowing anything down or changing anything. It was just go, go, go. We're doing really well. You keep going and hang in there, and we're, heading in the right direction. So chemotherapy for me was really, really hard. And I guess I was lucky to go through it at the age of 24. I think, we all know someone who has gone through chemotherapy. My auntie's gone through it, and she was 48. And it is harder naturally as you do get older. But I think because I was younger, it was easier for me to cope with it in terms of my body. But it was hard for sure.
Yeah, I think having experienced it on both sides of the parents, like, I think the brutality of it does obviously get worse the older you get. And I remember my grandfather having to have it just before he sadly passed away years ago when I was quite young. And I remember seeing that thinking, wow, like, it's almost impossible to describe it until you've lived it. And obviously really appreciate you kind of sharing everything so far. I mean, we've touched on your story so far. You've already mentioned, your fiance Charlotte and the family around you. How did that factor into all of this? Because the journey that we all go on through life is very much our journey, but we take a lot of people with you. And how did they cope, deal, manage? What were the kind of discussions you were having around that period during chemo?
Yeah, I just felt really bad. Me and Charlotte had only just got into a relationship together, and it was like, I have to impress the in-laws, and oh, by the way, I've got cancer. It's like, Jesus Christ, how do you handle that? But I guess it brought my family and her family really close, really quickly. And now it's quite a unique relationship that we have. It's kind of like a big family, which is really, really nice to see and look at. But yeah, I mean, especially for Charlotte, it's only till like now that we really talk about it and look back. I mean, I've only been in remission for just over a month now, but I feel like I'm starting to look normal again. My hair's to a decent length. I've just started working out again. but yeah, I mean, Charlotte went through it mentally, whereas I went through it physically and mentally, but she did go through it just as much as I did. And I it's such a cliche thing to say, oh, I've never been able to do it without you, but I genuinely wouldn't have been able to do it without her beside me. Obviously, it was all through the pandemic as well. So at the hospital, I was there off and on for 10 weeks, staying over at, maximum sometimes a week. That was quite hard because I was on my own. I wasn't allowed any visitors. I was lucky that I was there long enough to pick and choose which bedroom I was going to have, and I ended up picking the one with the window in, so I could just have visitors to the window. So that was really hard to cope with. But as I mentioned earlier, with Charlotte's mum being a nurse, she was brilliant within all of it as well. She pointed out, me into the right direction a lot of times. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of just sprung the family really close together. And it's now that we look back and think, wow, that was a hell of a year. And now we can really start to look forward to, buying our first house and getting married and children and things like that, really. But yeah, it's really brought us, close together.
That's really good to hear. I'm glad that there's some positives out of the process that you've all been through. I guess linking to that then is what about you? And so we've heard your story and what it was like going through this journey. But now that you've come out the other side, what's changed? What's different about you? Obviously, anyone going through that process is going to change in some way. So has your outview in life changed? Has your motivation for certain things changed? Have you changed personally, would you say?
Yeah, definitely I've changed. I'd get back to I was a bit of a Herbert before, maybe hang around with the wrong people. I was never a horrible person, but I think maybe I look back and I think you was a bit of an idiot. Maybe a bit too big for your boots. But the way I look at life now is very different. And I look back to that person I was before. I don't change or regret anything, but I just maybe wish I did things a little bit differently and maybe wasn't so stubborn and things wouldn't have worked out the way that they have. But I definitely appreciate life, and I'm a lot more relaxed now and about minor things that really don't matter that maybe 2 years ago I would have got really wound up about. Life has, chooses its paths and it deals these cards to you, and it's down to you of how you deal with them. But I definitely think I look at life in a more relaxed way. I'm even more healthier than what I was before. But it's also affected my family. They all look after themselves. Like no one smokes anymore. It's not like everyone smoked before, but we're very against things like that. If you choose to choose to smoke. But in our family, it's something that is hit home with looking after yourself and making sure that you are checking for lumps and bumps.
I'm curious because there's people listening out there and I think the context adds such a different dynamic to it, because not most people, that's the wrong phrase. People, when they get older, 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever it is, you would anticipate some form of health crises at some point, unless you're very, very fortunate. But actually, to have experienced it so young and gone through bullet number 1, surgery, testicle removed, bullet number 2, chemo, and having such a wonderful, family support network around you to get through that. I mean, I don't want to, you almost feel like we're shortcutting the story. That wasn't the end of it. That's not a bit where I go, done and dusted. Chemo finishes after 10 weeks, happy days, tick back to normal. I mean, take us through that final bit, because for me, that's, I hope, the closing of the chapter in this sense, but it's incredible.
Yeah, so I was on week 8 of chemotherapy, and I had was meant to be my last checkup CT scan, and I had that checked, and then I went in for my last week of chemotherapy. So I went with my suitcase, my PlayStation, set up my bedroom in the hospital, and my doctor came in with 2 other new doctors, which I'd never seen before. And I've spoken to a few of the lads on the ward who are also cancer patients. And there's always, and I'm sure if there are any cancer patients listening, they'll agree that whenever you see a new doctor, out of the blue, you know that something is wrong. So these two new doctors came in, and my doctor said, "How are you?" "Yeah, I'm good, thank you." And something in the room, the atmosphere had changed. It was really, really weird. And he said, "I need to speak to you about your scan." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the results." And he said, "Look, there is no easy way to put this, and I am really sorry to deliver this news to you, but your chemotherapy, it is working, and it is getting rid of the cancer cells in your tumor, which is in your left side of your lymph nodes on your stomach. But what it isn't actually getting rid of is the tumor itself. So it's killing it, but it's not killing the tumor." So I was just, I don't understand what you're trying to say. So he was like, "Well, it's kind of like getting a rock which is covered by mud. It's getting rid of all the mud, but it's not getting rid of the rock." So I said, "Right, okay, so what are you going to do to get rid of the rock?" And I just said, like, "Is it going to be like another week of chemotherapy?" And he said, no, I think you need to sit down," because I was standing up and I was pacing, I was on my own. I just remember looking at myself in the mirror and looking like, wow, I look so ill, like what the hell is going on? And he said, "You need to undergo a serious operation, and it's called the RPLND," which I had known about before because my friend Ryan on the Cancer Lads page had it, and it's what you have if the treatment doesn't work, basically. And there's a 1 in 10 chance of working. It's a 1 in 10 chance of you having to undergo the surgery. That was just like, wow, like, what the hell is going on? Because he literally said that news, and then he left. Like, he's not a counsellor. He's there to deliver me the news and update me what's going on, and that's it. So I kind of panicked. I was like, I can't ring Charlotte. That's going to break her heart. So I rang her mum, and I just said, "Look, this is the news." And she started crying, and I was just like, "Oh, who do I speak to that's not going to cry? Because I need someone to go to for strength. I need to air what's going on." And she said, like, "Just wait until the evening to tell Charlotte, and whatever it is, we know we're going to get through it." But the big factor of it was that I knew that if I had to have this operation, I wouldn't be able to have children anymore because it's that intense for an operation. For those that don't know what the RPLND is, it's the removal of the lymph nodes completely, because that's where the cancer is. So they'd have to cut me open from the bottom of my chest all the way down my stomach, past my belly button, lift out my organs, like my kidneys, out of the way to get right to the back of my lymph nodes, to then cut them out and then put all the organs back in and then stitch me back up. The operation is like an 8-hour surgery, and it's only done by like 25 surgeons in the UK. So it's a really intense and specialist operation. That was heartbreaking. I think that was the hardest thing, out of being diagnosed, out of being told 6 months later that you've got to have chemotherapy, but being told that, we're going to strip you of your identity of what you look like. We're going to make you really ill. But by the way, like, it still doesn't finish you off. Like, we're not finished with you yet. That just done me. And that was the only time I'd sat in my hospital bed and I literally remember laying there and thinking, I'm going to give up. I am going to be that kid that died of cancer, aren't I? I just in such a negative mind frame. I was laid there and I was just like, cancer, you do what you got to do, because I don't think I can do this anymore.
I'm lost for words, Danny. I don't know about you, but I don't know. I think, having seen it both ways, I've seen it the good way and I've seen it go the bad way. I think it's incredibly moving that you can verbalize that so well. And I think the difference is, and me and Danny have spoken about this previously, I think the older generation keep the stiff upper lip, whether it's going good or bad. And I think, I can only speak from personal experience. The latter weeks of spending time with my dad, he didn't accept that he was giving up. There was nothing he could do. And I think it's so incredible that you're able to, obviously that you are where you are, but that you can actually verbalize that in your head. That was the thought process you went through, because I think the ability for people to recognize not that they're giving up, you know, on a piece of coursework or on a job or on a relationship or whatever it is, but they're giving up on life. Like, I don't know how you do that. So again, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's hugely powerful. And I mean, what happened next? Because I almost feel like I want to get out of this bit into the really good stuff.
I'll speed up. No, so I finished the final 2 weeks of chemotherapy. So it's kind of annoying because I had all this like, oh, I'm going to have a party, I'm going to celebrate. And it was just as the lockdown restrictions were coming in, and you could have parties with up to 30 people. So, you know, I was buzzing for life. I was really getting excited for the new beginning, but for that to be told, like, and it's just so, I was embarrassed to tell my friends, because I was like, my friends in the group chat, there's like 28 of us, and they were all like giving a countdown of, you know, Ash's last day of treatment, 17th of August. But to sit there and write a big paragraph into the group chat again, oh, it was just so hard. And I was just like, I feel like I'm just leading them on like a piece of string. But, you know, I did it. And they said, look, we still need to celebrate because you've still completed your chemotherapy. And my family were, you know, they were like, look, you've done amazing. This is the hardest part. I knew it wasn't, but it kind of was. So, yeah, I finished the chemotherapy on the 17th of August. I wasn't allowed to have the operation for 2-3 months because my body was that weak, and my immune system wouldn't be anywhere near strong enough to cope with an operation of that volume of importance. So I wasn't allowed to have that straight away. So I did have a little bit of normality. I did go back to work. That was really hard because I still didn't have any hair left. And I work at David Lloyd in sales. So to meet customers and to go back and see members, that was quite hard because I knew that everyone knew the club itself that I work for had been quite supportive in terms of, you know, letting the members know. But to go back with no hair and no muscle was quite hard because I knew that some people just look and stare, and some people come and buy you a coffee. It was really weird. But everyone copes with it in different ways, and I'd probably be the same of, you know, what do you say? It's kind of an odd situation to be in. So and then I had a really big party with my friends, which was great. But I knew at the back of my head was this operation was coming to me sooner and sooner. So that was booked in for the 30th of November. So I could recover quick enough to have a good Christmas this time, hopefully. And I had it in the Cromwell Hospital, which is in South Kensington. It's where a lot of celebrities and footballers go for their private health treatment. So that was, it was really scary. But same again, because the restrictions were in. I couldn't bring anyone with me to hold my hand, but to literally be dropped off at the door with a suitcase. This is your room. You'll have your operation in a couple of hours' time. But I knew that I was literally about to be slit open from top to bottom under an operating table for 7 hours. It was really scary. I mean, the most scariest part, I feel like it's quite important to let people know, is that I had to sign it to say, like, I obviously approved for this to happen, but there was a 1 to 5% chance of death, and I had to sign that. I was just like, this is crazy. That I'm about to have this operation and there's a chance that I might not even wake up again. So that was really hard to digest, but I still don't think I've digested it now. I had the operation. That was on the Monday, and then I was home by the Friday. But then 5 days in hospital, I don't really remember much. In all honesty, I was in intensive care. I was on a lot of drugs, a lot of morphine. So it kind of just sped its way. But I remember being in a lot of pain. I couldn't move. At all. But for the next 3-4 weeks was quite an intense physiotherapy program. I had to get my core moving. But I was able to do it at home, which was quite good. And it was literally simple, like a walk to the toilet and back was me done for the day. That was really tough. And that was that. So I had to wait again for another scan because my body wasn't strong enough from coping from the surgery. And I had a scan at the end of December, and then out of the blue, I got my results on the 12th of January 2021. I was laying in bed with a coffee with Charlotte, and my doctor called me out of the blue. I wasn't expecting results back to be this soon. And he just said, "Hello, Ashton, how are you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." I said, "Right, please say you're calling me for something good, because I've had 3 lots of bad news now." And he said, I'm really, honestly, this one I'm really happy to say, but yeah, you are officially in remission and you are cancer free. So you can go tweet it, and don't forget to tag me, because I deserve some recognition. So that was the kind of relationship we'd kind of built over the last year. But that was the best. It was the best moment of my life of 25 years of living. Yeah.
It's a great way to sort of end on a positive. I guess it's got to end in that way, hopefully, and unfortunately it did for you. One thing that I'm really interested in speaking about, I guess it's one of my last questions for you, is, and it's because of the impact it had on me and so many other people, is what made you decide to be so open with the journey? Because obviously a lot of people would just sort of deal with it in their own little world. But you and I know a lot of people appreciated it. Really, you were so open about what was happening to you. You shared everything, and you shared so many pictures. You showed, obviously, made so many videos, which I actually shared with Kevin before we invited you onto the podcast. So, what made you decide to do that? Why did you decide to really open up and show everybody what your journey was and what it looked like?
I just think it was the only way, like it was my only option, because I was so young, like I am still young, and because of how, you know, up to date I am with social media and this day and age that we all are in, I don't think there is no other option. I could have lived through it, because I think if I didn't be so vocal about it, I don't think I would have coped, because I had my support of my family and my little close bubble of friends. But I mean, I got diagnosed on December 2019, and I didn't do a tweet about it until May 2020. So I had that 4 or 5 months of hiding it, and that was horrible, because I was trying to like not tell people, but tell people. It was kind of weird. But Charlotte was the one who said, "Look, why don't you just do a tweet, like a before and after photo of you before the operation?" This was before the chemotherapy. And I actually did a tweet saying, "Look, I was really lucky. I went to the doctors. Look, here's a picture of me on Sydney Beach in Australia, and here's a picture of me in hospital bed. You know, don't take life for granted." And it went viral. And then literally it was like a month later, I was told that it'd come back, and I was like, "Oh my God, like this is so bad." But hold up a minute, I could kind of use this platform to build on. So I just did a follow-up tweet to that one, and it just blew up. It was absolutely crazy. I mean, I'm a massive Arsenal fan, and Arsenal Football Club got in touch with me. I had messages from Paul Merson, Tony Adams, Lee Dixon, some celebrities like Mario Falcone from Towie, and they all thought what I was doing was great, just, you know, getting it out there. But I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it now, but it's just such a taboo of a subject of men not checking themselves and not talking about their problems. And you know, it was such a negative subject, but I had to find the positive out of it, and that was it, from being so vocal and getting the message out there of men checking yourselves, and it back to mental health. It's okay if you cry. Men do cry. I cried a lot. I mean, yes, I was going through an awful stage of my life, but people do cry about normal things as well, and it's okay to do that. But the main message was, I just wanted people to see how different I looked from what I looked like before being diagnosed to what I did during treatment, because I think that was a really powerful image of how different I actually look, so that men do check themselves, because they hopefully look at that and think, Jesus Christ, like that is intense stuff to look at. And I hope I do, you know, I hope that has worked, and I'm pretty sure it has, because my phone blows up every day now.
It's fantastic, and I think, you know, they say a picture paints 1,000 words, and I think hopefully we've covered 1,000 words actually over this recording, and it's been extremely powerful. I mean, there's one more thing I want to kind of ask, is that being somebody that, as you've stated, you are so young, but you've been through so much. You've showed exceptional courage and also strength, not just to go through the journey, but as Danny's alluded to share that journey with everybody. So reflecting back now, and I say we're all extremely happy that you are where you are now and you are in remission. So what is kind of your, if we can call it, takeaway message, golden piece of advice to everyone out there who is kind of getting hung up, I guess, in the trivial issues that we all seem to have in the world right now, relatively speaking, for most people? Having been on this journey, what would you say to everyone out there?
Yeah, I've got a little slogan. It's just check yourself before you wreck yourself. I think, men, they definitely do need to check themselves. There's so many men that have messaged me of how do I check myself, or how often do I check myself? And I do post regular things on my socials. But check yourself every first of the month. Do it in the shower or in the bath. Google it. It's on the NHS website. It's so easy to check yourself. But also, if you are going through a problem which you think you can't cope with anymore, let it out and just speak to someone. It doesn't matter who it is, your mum, your dad, your brother, your next door neighbor. Just talk to someone, because if I didn't talk to someone, I would have been in such a worse state. But me talking to the world about it, it helped me get through it. And if I didn't do that, it would have been a lot harder. So definitely check yourself out.
All right. I don't know if you've got any closing thoughts, Danny, for us.
No, I think that's a really nice sort of message to finish on, is a bit of advice from someone that's lived through this incredible experience. And for me, what blows me away is what Kevin said: your resilience and your ability just to get knocked down, get back up again, 3 times, he said, which just must have been so hard. But I think that's a really nice way to finish. Is, you've been through the experience. This is your advice that you would give to everybody. So I think that's a really nice way to finish, Kevin.
Fantastic. Well, Ash, thank you so much for your time. And Danny, thanks for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we'll make sure we include every social link, every awareness, everything we need in the show notes so that everyone can follow your journey and hopefully follow up. And even if one person out there hears this and thinks, hey, there's something that maybe I actually need to go and check or do or say, then actually it's been worthwhile. So Ash, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope everyone got the message.
Thanks again to Ashton for such an honest and insightful interview, and to Danny for some amazing questions. In the show notes, you can find 4 links we want to share with you, and we'd love for you to check them out. The Cancer Lads Group, Macmillan Cancer, the NHS Million, and the Mount Vernon Cancer Centre all do incredible work, so please do give them a click through and find out more. It's hard to refine that 45-minute discussion down to a few messages, as it felt like a life-changing message every few minutes. A big one that resonated with me was the pride and alpha male message. Putting your ego aside and recognising that you only get one body, whether it's your physical or mental health, don't risk compromising it because you're too proud to ask for help or support from someone or somewhere. Ashton really did dodge a bullet, and we hope this message will resonate with so many out there. So, on to next week and our penultimate episode of Season 4. It's hard to believe we've already done 6 shows this year. Next week we are speaking to Kyle Sockwell, the former Arizona Sun Devil athlete who trained under the tutelage of one of the most successful coaches on the planet, Bob Bowman. We talk about the ups and downs of the athlete journey and what's it like stepping away from the athlete training pool and into the working world. Thanks again for joining us for the Rogue Monkey podcast, and we hope you have a great week.